My goddamn garage, we're talking beauty now. My goddamn garage, we're talking cleavage. My goddamn garage, we're talking mountains, yeah. My goddamn garage, we're talking rivers too. My goddamn garage, we're talking beauty. My goddamn garage, we're talking cleavage. A friend of mine at work was telling me how he could get lost in a woman's cleavage, mesmerized in a trance. Now, obviously, he knows to control himself. But it's not like I'm not familiar with the phenomena. You ever hear of Stendhal syndrome? Supposedly, it's a psychosomatic condition involving rapid heartbeat, fainting, confusion, and even hallucinations, allegedly occurring when individuals become exposed to objects, artworks, or phenomena of great beauty and antiquity. Maybe it's all nonsense. I could just be trying to justify things here. But it seems like staring at a natural beauty can have a similar impact on you. Time just slips away, and you hardly notice. It's why some men can be busted gawking at a woman, which I realize a lot of women will just see that as objectification, although I'm sure they're guilty too. But just because you focus on the object doesn't mean you lose the subject. People are generally still aware. And I realize we shouldn't be going around gawking at each other. You need to maintain some sense of decorum, so we learn to control ourselves. And that's a useful skill for anybody to have. You learn to admire with more subtlety. Now, there is a dark side to that because sexuality is involved. So that's what makes people nervous, because there's a dark element to sexuality. So you should be aware of your shadow and your shadow impulses. But that's not all there is. There's also an element of beauty that's far above all that. There's also the light that casts the shadow. I recall there was this waitress that I had a crush on at the Blues on White in Edmonton back in my university days. And I'd see her, over the course of 3 years, once every week or so. And I started to feel like I knew her after a while. But really, she was still an abstract thought, someone totally distant, because I didn't know her. And that kind of relegated her to a fantasy world. And that made the crush worse in a lot of ways. Anyhow, one day I'm busking in the LRT station, just sort of playing away and lost in the music. And I turn and look, and there she is, walking right towards me. And she walks right up to me and stops in front of me. And then she says something nice about my guitar playing and asks me a question. And I don't remember what the hell it was. So I turn to her and I say, and I don't know how long I sat there, not answering her, just amazed this was happening and staring off into the distance like an idiot. But eventually she got irritated and walked away, of course. And I never spoke to her, not a word. And as she walked away, I slowly realized what had happened. And I knew I screwed up, but I was lost. I was stunned. I couldn't think properly. I had built this up far too much. Beauty and your own perceptions can do these kinds of things to you. I only looked at the light and I didn't see the shadow. And so her reality ruined my fantasy. It's not just human beauty either, right? It could be a wild animal, a mountain range, a waterfall, something not intended as an actual work of art that still somehow manages to make you react much like a work of art can. Something naturally occurring. We try to make things beautiful, but where does this idea of beauty come from? Now, I realize there is a ratio that has been proposed, and I enjoy that kind of thinking, but a ratio is not a source. Why the ratio? Why anything? I suspect we see it in the natural world all around us and attempt to emulate it in the things that we create, trying to emulate the beauty we see in ratios, rivers, waterfalls, cleavage. But go deeper, though. Where does that concept of beauty come from? So one day I was out with this old girlfriend of mine. We'd been on and off throughout the years. She was a Filipina lady, a protester, a feminist, a philosopher, a very smart woman. And yet, despite these differences, we still managed to connect and had a turbulent but exciting relationship. And as we're walking along, she kind of catches me admiring this woman on the sly. So she calls me out in a somewhat typical feminist way. Oh, still objectifying women with the male gaze, I see. And perhaps I could be more generous. So I turned to her and I said, oh, come on now. Every time we go out, you're pointing out this or that dress or hat or thing that you like, all these man-made things. So why can't I reach for something higher and admire something God made? She kind of laughed at me. Oh, nice excuse, she says. You've managed to make your misogyny sound poetic. Is that what I did? I don't think so. God truly is the greatest of inspirations. We look for beauty in the mountains and the streams, in the faces of our dreams, and all them places in between. There's a light that's way up high, and so we reach towards the sky to leave that mark before we die that shows we know. What do we know? What do we know? Well, maybe we look for beauty just to pass the time, oh, to keep us alive. We may need this to survive, and if you go down deep, far into the other side, you may see just what we hide that they can't know. What can't they know? Oh, God knows.